They told him he didn't belong. They told him he was too black, too poor, too loud, too ambitious. But when a quiet teenager from Atlanta exposes a hidden system of racism that nearly destroys his future, he turns his pain into a national reckoning. This is his untold fight for justice. In every community, there are stories that shake the ground beneath us. Stories that remind us that silence has a cost, that dignity must be defended, and that even the smallest voice can tear down the strongest walls. Today, on Black Diaries, we bring you one such story. A real story. A painful story. A story that America tried to bury, until one determined black teenager forced the world to see what was happening right in front of them. This is the story of Malik Carter, age 16. Location, South Atlanta. Dream, a scholarship to Howard University. Threat, a school system built to fail him. And yet he fought back. The afternoon sun hung low over South Atlanta, turning the cracked pavement into glistening strips of amber light. Kids walked home from school in clusters, backpacks slung low, sneakers dragging, voices echoing. But Malik Carter walked alone, headphones around his neck, binder pressed to his chest, expression heavy with the weight of a world people his age should never have to carry. His school, Harrington High, was supposed to be a place of learning. But for black students like Malik, it was a battlefield. Metal detectors at every entrance. Police officers stationed at every hallway corner. Locked bathroom doors. Broken computers. Teachers leave every semester. And rules that punished black students far more than anyone else. It wasn't written anywhere. It wasn't announced on the loudspeaker. But it was real, painfully real. And Malik had begun to notice the pattern long before the rest of the world did. He first saw it in the way teachers looked at him, as though a black boy wearing an honor roll badge was a threat, not a student. He saw it in how counselors pushed white students toward AP classes, but placed black kids in behavior-focused groups, if they so much as spoke too loudly. He saw it in how the school resource officer followed him down the hallway even when he was just going to the vending machine. But on one cold October morning, everything changed. That was the morning Malik learned the truth. The day he realized his school was hiding something dangerous, something that had already ruined the futures of hundreds of black students before him. And he was about to be next. It began with a pencil. Yes, a pencil. Second period English. The room was quiet, filled with the scratch of writing. Malik reached into his backpack and realized his pencil had broken. He whispered to the girl beside him, "Can I borrow one?" She nodded and handed him a spare. That was it. Nothing more. Until the door swung open. Officer Hendricks, the school's infamous resource officer, a tall, heavy-set man with a buzz cut and permanent scowl, stormed into the classroom. He pointed directly at Malik. "You! Out! Now!" The class froze. Malik looked confused. "Sir, what did I do?" "You were stealing," Hendricks barked. The teacher looked startled. "Officer, I don't think." "Step outside," Hendricks repeated. Malik stood slowly, heart thudding. Outside, Hendricks shoved him against a locker. "You think we don't see you people? Always taking things that don't belong to you." Malik's throat tightened. "I didn't steal anything. I just—" "Save it." Within minutes, Malik was marched to the principal's office. His punishment? 3 days suspension and a disciplinary mark that would go on his permanent record for borrowing a pencil. Malik's mother, Danielle Carter, arrived within the hour. A nurse working 2 jobs, hair wrapped in a navy scarf, scrubs still wrinkled from the night shift. She walked into the office, with her jaw set tight. "You suspended my son over a pencil." Her voice trembled with disbelief. Principal Harris, a pale man with thin glasses, didn't even look up from his paperwork. "Ma'am, your son was involved in the theft." "He borrowed a pencil," she snapped. "Ask the girl who gave it to him." "That's irrelevant." Danielle's breath caught in her throat. Irrelevant. That one word said everything. That night, Malik sat at the dining table doing homework when he overheard his mother crying behind the closed bathroom door. He had seen her tired. He had seen her frustrated. But he had never, not once, heard her cry. Something twisted inside him. He opened his laptop and began searching. Black students suspended for small things. School to prison pipeline, Georgia. Disproportionate discipline black students. Page after page of reports, lawsuits, data charts, articles, all saying the same thing. Black kids were being punished more severely, more often, and for minor infractions. And then he found something that made his breath stop completely. A leaked district document. It listed disciplinary quotas. Quotas. Numbers. Percentages. Each school had a target for suspensions. And at the bottom of the page, highlighted in yellow, Harrington High maintained 68% suspension rate for African American students. Malik's hand shook. He wasn't imagining it. He wasn't oversensitive. He wasn't making excuses. They were targeting him. Targeting kids who looked like him. Targeting entire futures. And he knew, if he stayed quiet, he'd be just another black boy buried by a system that pretended it didn't know his name. Malik closed his laptop and sat still for a long time. He was only 16. He didn't have lawyers. He didn't have money. He didn't have power. But he did have something else. His voice. And he decided to use it. The next morning, Malik walked into school with a folder tucked beneath his arm. He had printed every document he found, the quotas, the statistics, the reports. His footsteps echoed down the hallway like a steady drumbeat, but his heartbeat was louder. Every whisper in the hall felt sharper today. Every stare lingered longer. Every eye seemed to ask, "Why are you still fighting?" He wasn't sure what he'd do with the documents yet. He just knew that silence was no longer an option. He headed toward room 215, the journalism classroom, where Miss Thompson, the only teacher who seemed to truly see him, was grading papers at her desk. Her head lifted when she saw him. "Malik, you're supposed to be suspended." "I know," he said, "but I need to show you something." Her brow pinched in confusion, but she gestured for him to close the door. He slid the documents onto her desk. She scanned the first page. Her eyes widened. She flipped to the next. Her face was drained of color. Then the next. Her jaw clenched. She paused, looking up slowly. "Where did you get these?" she whispered. "Online," he said. "They weren't supposed to be public." Ms. Thompson stood abruptly. She walked to the window, pressed her palm against the glass, and stared out at the courtyard, where students milled around with backpacks, slung low and laughter echoing through the air. When she turned back, her eyes glistened. "Malik," she said softly. "This could expose the entire district." "I know," he said, "and I want to." Ms. Thompson warned him immediately. "If you push this, they will come for you first." "I know," he said again. "Your record will be targeted. Your grades. Your classes. Everything. I know. And your family." Her voice broke a little. "They may try to intimidate your mother, too." Malik swallowed hard. "I'm not scared." He was lying. He was terrified. But the fear didn't matter anymore. He wasn't fighting only for himself. He was fighting for every black student whose childhood had been signed away by ink and bureaucracy. Miss Thompson opened her filing cabinet, retrieved a small black USB drive, and plugged it into her computer. She uploaded every document, every file, every page. "You trust me?" she asked. "I do." "Good," she said, "because if they erase your copy, they're going to have to erase mine too." For the first time that day, Malik smiled, but the school knew something was happening almost instantly. By lunchtime, rumors swirled like smoke through the hallways. Malik's exposing something. He's meeting with teachers. Administration is pissed. They're watching him. When he walked into the cafeteria, conversations stopped abruptly. Dozens of eyes tracked him. The school resource officer stood in the corner, arms crossed. Malik sat alone at an empty table, tray untouched. Within minutes, Principal Harris approached him. "Mr. Carter," he said with an exaggerated politeness, "care to join me in my office?" Malik's stomach twisted. He nodded slowly. The entire cafeteria watched as he stood. It felt like walking into a trap he could not avoid. Principal Harris closed the door behind them and locked it, not with the front lock, but with the deadbolt. Malik felt his throat constrict. The principal's smile was thin, stretched across his face like cheap paint. "Son," he said, We hear you've been looking into things that don't concern you. Malik said nothing. Harris stepped closer. You're 16. You don't understand how these systems work. Sometimes numbers get misinterpreted. Malik reached into his folder, pulled out the highlighted district document, and placed it on Harris's desk. The principal's face twitched. Young man. Malik cut him off. I'm not confused. You're targeting black students. And I'm going to prove it. The words seemed to slice the air. Harris's eyes turned cold. You're making a mistake, he said. A serious mistake. Kids like you should know when to keep their heads down. Malik's pulse pounded. Kids like me, he repeated slowly. You know what I mean, Harris murmured. We're trying to help you. No, Malik said. You're trying to control me. Watch your tone, Harris snapped. Why? Malik asked. Does it sound too educated for you? Too confident? Too black? The principal's jaw tightened. It was the first time Malik had ever watched a grown man lose control of his own mask. You will regret this, Harris whispered. I promise you that. Malik stared into his eyes. No, he replied. I think you will. By the end of the day, the consequences began. Malik logged into his school portal. His grades, the ones he had worked night after night for, were changed. 2 assignments marked missing. 1 test score replaced with a 0. An entire week of participation marked as absent. His GPA dropped from 3.8 to 2.4 in a matter of minutes. He slammed his laptop shut. His hands trembled with rage. They weren't even hiding it. They were punishing him in real time. When his mother got home, she saw his expression. Baby, she whispered. What happened? Malik showed her the screen. She stared. Then she sank into a chair. Then she covered her mouth with her hand. Lord, they're really doing this. Yeah, Malik said quietly. Danielle looked up. Then something changed in her eyes. A spark. A fire. A storm. No, she said firmly. No, they do not get to break my boy. She stood. We're fighting this. That night, mother and son sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of papers, highlighters, laptops, and sticky notes. Malik's sister, 8-year-old Alana, slept in her bedroom unaware of the war being prepared in the living room. Danielle printed phone logs, attendance notes, screenshot after screenshot of grade changes. We are documenting everything, she said. Malik nodded. And tomorrow, she continued, I'm calling someone who will listen. Who? Danielle's lips curved into a fierce, tired smile. A civil rights attorney. Malik sat back in his chair. This was becoming real. Very real. At Harrington High, panic spread like wildfire. Teachers whispered. Administrators held urgent meetings. Officer Hendricks patrolled like he was guarding Fort Knox. Malik had touched a nerve they couldn't afford to expose. For years, Harrington High had quietly inflated their statistics to appear tough on discipline, making their staff eligible for bonuses, federal incentives, and private grants. It wasn't just racism. It was profitable. And Malik was threatening millions of dollars. So they escalated. The next day, Hendricks searched Malik's backpack, claiming random inspection. He found nothing. Then he searched Malik's locker. Nothing. Then Malik was called to the office again. This time, Principal Harris tried a different tactic. Son, we can fix your grades, he said. We can clear your record. We can forget this whole thing. Malik stared. There it was. The bribe. All he had to do was stay silent. But something inside him, something deeper than fear, spoke for him. No deal. That's when Malik made the decision that would explode across America. That night, he opened his phone, turned the camera toward himself, and began to speak. His voice trembled at first. My name is Malik Carter. I'm a student at Harrington High School in South Atlanta, and I need you to hear what's happening to black students like me. He talked about the pencil, the suspension, the quotas, the document, the grade retaliation, the threats. He placed the district paper in front of the camera. He held it there so the world could read it. Then he ended with, they're trying to silence me, but I'm not shutting up. Not now. Not ever. He uploaded it. He expected maybe a few dozen views. In the first hour, it hit 20,000. In the first night, 1.2 million. By morning, 4.6 million views. His phone buzzed nonstop. Comments flooded in. People from all over the country, parents, students, activists, journalists, shared his video. And the fire he had sparked became a national storm. By sunrise, the world was awake, and it had found Malik. His phone sat on the kitchen table, vibrating nonstop, lighting up the dim room with notifications that flashed too fast to read. His mother stood beside him, hand covering her mouth as she read the comment count climbing into the hundreds of thousands. "Baby, people are listening," she whispered. Malik stared at the screen, stunned. He had spent his whole life feeling invisible. Yet in less than 12 hours, he had become impossible to ignore. News outlets began contacting him. Civil rights groups tagged him. Teachers from different states reached out with similar documents. But what shook him most was the flood of messages from students. "This happened to me. They suspended me for a hoodie. They locked me out of class for being late. They handcuffed my brother for talking back." It wasn't just his school. It wasn't just his city. It was everywhere. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed. By 9 a.m., Harrington High School was in crisis mode. Principal Harris stood in the center of the administrative office, face red, tie slightly crooked, sweat glistening along his hairline. "We need to contain this," he barked. "I want every teacher instructed not to speak to students or the media about any disciplinary procedures." The assistant principal, clearly panicked, added, "Sir," he showed the quota sheet, the actual sheet from the district. Harris slammed his fist on the desk. He wasn't supposed to see that. One of the office staff hesitated before speaking. "Should we contact the superintendent?" Harris glared at her. "He already called me, and he wants this dealt with today." But there was no way to stop what had already begun. Camera vans lined the street outside. Students peeked through windows. Teachers whispered frantically in hallways. The building felt less like a school and more like a crime scene. When Malik and his mother approached the school that morning, the sidewalk in front of the campus was packed. News crews, community organizers, parents holding signs, former students, lawyers in suits, pastors from local churches. The moment Malik stepped out of the car, dozens of cameras turned toward him. Microphones stretched forward. People clapped. Students shouted his name. It felt unreal, like walking into a spotlight he never asked for. A young reporter approached. "Malik, how does it feel knowing you sparked a national conversation overnight?" He blinked, overwhelmed. "I didn't mean to spark anything," he said quietly. "I just wanted them to stop hurting us." A wave of emotion rippled through the crowd. His mother placed a hand on his back. "That's my son," she whispered, voice trembling with pride. But the school district had a plan, a messy, panicked, deeply cruel plan. As Malik approached the entrance, Officer Hendricks stepped in front of the door, blocking him. "You're not allowed inside today," Hendricks said. Malik froze. "Why?" Hendricks smirked. "You're under investigation. For misconduct." Reporters gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Parents shouted in outrage. His mother stepped forward. "He has the right to attend his classes." "Not anymore," Hendricks replied. "He's a disruption. A threat." The word threat hung in the air like poison. Malik's jaw clenched. A threat? To whom? For what? Telling the truth. The crowd erupted. "Let him in. Stop targeting this child. This is racism. Enough is enough." Then a familiar car pulled up. A tall black woman in a gray suit stepped out. Her presence radiated authority. This was Attorney Renee Wallace, one of Georgia's top civil rights lawyers. The woman Malik's mother had called the night before. She walked straight toward Hendricks, heels clicking sharply on the pavement. "You will step away from my client," she said calmly. "He is entering this school today." Hendricks stiffened. "Ma'am, the district is violating both state and federal law," Wallace cut in. "If you interfere with this minor again, I will personally see to it that your department faces a lawsuit that will make national history." The crowd cheered. Hendricks stepped back. Principal Harris appeared at the door, flustered and sweating. "This isn't appropriate." Neither is racial discrimination, Wallace replied. Her voice was cool, precise, deadly. You will allow this student to attend class, she continued, or this school will face an injunction before lunchtime. Harris swallowed hard. He moved aside. Malik walked through the doors, and the entire crowd roared. The moment he stepped inside, the school felt different. Students leaned out of classrooms. Hands reached out for high fives. Kids he had never spoken to nodded in solidarity. Some young black boys looked at him with something almost like awe. But it wasn't the applause he felt. It was heavy. Responsibility. Expectation. He wasn't just Malik anymore. He was a symbol. A spark. A mirror reflecting everything the school had tried to hide. Ms. Thompson met him outside his first period class. She didn't say anything. She simply placed a hand over her heart. And for the first time since this began, Malik nearly cried. Before the second period, Malik received a message to report to conference room B. Attorney Wallace walked beside him. His mother followed behind. Inside the room sat the superintendent, the principal, the assistant principal, a district lawyer, 3 board members, all wearing tight smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The superintendent cleared his throat. Malik, we want to resolve this peacefully. Attorney Wallace smiled politely. The kind of smile sharpened like a blade. Good, she said. Then you'll start by reinstating his grades. The district lawyer jumped in. Well, we have concerns about academic integrity. You fraudulently altered his record, Wallace said. We have screenshots, timestamps, witnesses. Try again. The assistant principal shifted nervously. The superintendent sighed. Okay, he said. We'll restore his grades. But we need the story to calm down. Wallace leaned forward. Then you'll also eliminate the disciplinary quota system. Gasps rippled around the table. The superintendent stiffened. There's no quota system. Malik slid the printed document across the table. The highlighted section glowed like a wound. Silence. Cold. Heavy. Inescapable. The superintendent's face was drained of color. Fine, he muttered. We'll review the policy. No, Wallace replied. You'll dismantle it. Still silent. Then Wallace said the words that changed everything. And you are going to issue a public apology. The room exploded. Absurd. We can't. Legal nightmare. He's just a kid. But Malik sat still. Calm. Quiet. Unmoving. He wasn't intimidated anymore. Wallace waited for the noise to settle. Then she spoke again. Apology. Policy elimination. Grade restoration. All in writing by the end of day. The superintendent glared at her. You're overestimating your leverage. Wallace smiled. And you, she said gently, are underestimating the power of a viral generation that is done watching black kids be buried by systems like yours. The superintendent looked at Malik. For the first time, he didn't see a student. He saw a storm. 3 hours later, the district drafted the agreement. Grades restored. Suspension erased. Quotas eliminated. Investigations launched. But the most important line was the one they fought hardest. We acknowledge that our policies have disproportionately harmed our black students. Malik read that line over and over again, not because it fixed everything, but because for the first time, the system had been forced to admit its violence. Later that evening, a district-wide email went out to every parent, teacher, and staff member. It began with 3 words no one ever expected to see. We were wrong. The statement continued. We recognize that certain disciplinary policies have disproportionately affected black students. We are initiating a full review and committed to building a safe, equitable learning environment. For the first time in its 52-year history, the district admitted discrimination. Local news anchors read the statement on air. National outlets picked up the story. Social media exploded again. But the apology wasn't the victory Malik cared about. It was the messages from kids like him. Hundreds of them. A boy from Chicago. They suspended me for talking too loudly. Thank you for speaking up. A girl from Florida. They handcuffed my brother for not having a hall pass. I never thought anyone would believe us. A mother from Texas. My son's school targeted him too. You gave us courage. Every message felt like a piece of pain. and a piece of hope, handed directly into Malik's hands. He realized something now. This fight was never just about him. It was about all of them. The following Sunday, 3 churches in South Atlanta held a joint community meeting at Emmanuel Baptist Church. The sanctuary overflowed with people of all ages, races, and walks of life. Parents held signs. Teens wore shirts that said, "I stand with Malik." Pastor Rivers, a tall man with silver hair and a voice that carried like thunder, stepped up to the pulpit. "We are gathered here today," he said, "because a young man had the courage to tell the truth when grown men tried to bury it." The crowd roared. Malik sat in the front row between his mother and Attorney Wallace. He felt dozens of eyes on him, but this time they weren't sharp with judgment. They were filled with pride, with gratitude, with hope. Pastor Rivers continued, "Our children deserve classrooms, not courtrooms. Opportunity, not oppression. Education, not incarceration." He lifted his hands. "And thanks to this young brother right here, we're going to fight to make sure every child in this district gets just that." The entire room stood at once. Applause thundered through the church. Tears rolled down Danielle's cheeks. Malik bowed his head. This was bigger than him now. Bigger than any school. It was a movement. But systems don't crumble without throwing punches on their way down. On Monday, the district launched a compliance investigation. Not into teachers. Not into administrators. Not into the quota policy. Into students. A surveillance audit. Locker checks. Hallway sweeps. Increased police presence. They were trying to scare the kids back into silence. And Malik noticed something chilling. Every student pulled aside was black. Attorney Wallace stormed into the school that afternoon. "These intimidation tactics end now," she said, slamming legal documents onto the office counter. Principal Harris panicked. "We're just ensuring safety. You're targeting children. We're following policy. You created the policy. If you don't step aside, I'll have federal investigators walking your halls by sunrise." Harris's mouth snapped shut. The sweeps stopped the next day. But the district had made something very clear. They weren't done fighting. 1 week later, Malik sat in his living room with his mother and Attorney Wallace. On the coffee table sat a letter. Not from the school. Not from the district. From a national education advocacy organization. "Dear Malik Carter, we would be honored to invite you to speak at our annual Youth Justice Summit in Washington, D.C." Danielle gasped. Malik stared. "Washington, as in Congress, Washington." Wallace smiled. "They want you to speak about the school-to-prison pipeline." Malik blinked slowly. "Me?" "Yes, you," Wallace said. "You started a national conversation. You proved the system is real. You held your ground." His mother squeezed his hand. "Baby, you changed everything." But Malik wasn't sure. He wasn't a speaker. Not a politician. Not a leader. He was just a kid who borrowed a pencil. But then he remembered the messages. The students who had been silenced. The pain he had seen in their words. The fear. The anger. The exhaustion. Someone had to speak for them. He looked up. "I'll do it." 3 weeks later, Malik stood backstage at the Youth Justice Summit in Washington, D.C., dressed in a crisp black blazer his mother bought from a thrift store the day before. A crowd of nearly 500 educators, lawmakers, journalists, and students filled the auditorium. His mother sat in the front row. Attorney Wallace stood beside her. Ms. Thompson had flown in too, using her savings. When they called his name, "Please welcome student advocate, Malik Carter." The room erupted in applause. His legs trembled as he walked onto the stage. But when he reached the microphone, something inside him settled. Not fear. No doubt. Purpose. He began. "When I first spoke up, I didn't think anyone would listen. I'm just a black kid from South Atlanta. But I realized something. Systems don't break when grown-ups speak. They break when the kids inside them refuse to stay silent." The room went still. I wasn't fighting for myself. I was fighting for the kids who missed school because they couldn't afford bus fare. For the kids suspended for wearing hoodies. For the ones handcuffed in hallways. For the ones told they were too loud, too angry, too disruptive, when really they were just black. A soft gasp rippled through the audience. He continued, "We are not threats. We are not quotas. We are not statistics you can manipulate." His voice thickened with emotion. "We are students." People began to stand. And I hope every kid watching this knows, you do not have to stay quiet. You do not have to accept injustice. Your voice is your power. Use it. By the time he finished, the entire room was on its feet. Some people wiped tears. Others raised fists. Reporters scribbled furiously. Malik walked off the stage in tears, collapsing into his mother's arms. "I'm so proud of you," she whispered. The pressure became unbearable for Harrington School District. Within 2 months, Principal Harris retired early. Officer Hendricks was removed from campus policing. The quota system was abolished across all district schools. A historic change. A new equity board was created, with Malik invited as a youth advisor. For the first time, students had a seat at the table. 1 year later, Harrington High looked different. Bathroom doors were unlocked. Police presence reduced. New counselors hired. Teachers trained in bias prevention. Suspension rates dropped by 43%. Walking through the halls, Malik felt the difference in the air. Not perfect, not fixed, but better. He headed to the library, where freshmen were gathered for orientation. The librarian noticed him and smiled. "Back to inspire another class, Mal?" He laughed softly. Something like that. A young black boy approached him. "Hey," the boy said shyly. "Are you Malik from the video?" Malik chuckled. "Yeah, that's me." The boy looked at him with wide, hopeful eyes. "My brother said you saved us." Malik felt his throat tighten. He crouched to meet the boy's gaze. "No," he said. "You saved yourselves. I just helped you so you could fight." The boy grinned. "You think I can be like you one day?" Malik's smile softened. "You're already better." Some stories remind us how fragile justice can be. Others remind us how powerful courage truly is. Malik Carter didn't set out to become a leader. He didn't ask to start a movement. He didn't expect the world to listen. He simply refused to stay silent. And in a country where silence has been demanded from black voices for generations, that refusal was revolutionary. Because when a system tries to break a child, and the child stands anyway, he becomes something unshakable. Not a victim, not a target, not a statistic, but a force, a reminder, a warning, a mirror, a spark that turns into a wildfire. Malik once walked into school alone, afraid and unseen. Now he walks forward with a nation behind him, and the boy they tried to break became the one who broke the cycle. Strong, emotional, audience engaging, viral retention ending. If this story moved you, if you believe voices like Malik's must be heard, if you believe our black youth deserve protection, dignity, and opportunity, then please like this video, subscribe, share, and comment below where you're watching from. Your engagement helps us bring more real stories that matter. Backhand index pointing right help us reach 5,000 subscribers. It means the world to our community. And remember, this is Black Diaries, where we tell powerful, emotional, real stories from the heart of the black community. Visit our channel every single day, because we post new viral true stories daily. Stories that deserve to be heard. Stories that deserve to be remembered. Stories that deserve to be fought for. Thank you for reading. Thank you for your support. And thank you for standing with us.